Mark Carney's Spring Surprise, the $950 single senior deposit. You didn't expect something unusual is happening in Ottawa right now. And if you're a Canadian senior or you're approaching retirement, this could affect you directly. Mark Carney has been in office for less than 3 weeks. But already, there are whispers coming from Finance Canada. Quiet discussions, internal memos, policy teams working overtime. And at the center of it all is a payment, a single deposit that many Canadian seniors weren't expecting. $950, one time, direct, and potentially targeted. Now, this isn't official yet. The announcement hasn't been made in a formal press conference. But the groundwork is being laid. And if you're receiving old age security, the guaranteed income supplement, or you're a low-income retiree, you need to understand what's happening here. Because this isn't just about one payment, it's about what comes next. My name is Joseph, and in this video, we're going to break down everything we know so far about this developing situation, what the $950 payment is, who it's aimed at, why it's happening now, and what it could mean for your retirement security going forward. Let's get into it. To understand what's happening right now, we need to look at the broader picture. Mark Carney became Prime Minister in late January 2026, following a turbulent political period and an election that centered heavily on economic concerns. Inflation, housing affordability, cost of living, these were the dominant issues. And seniors were among the most vocal groups calling for action. Why? Because over the past 3 years, Canadian retirees have been hit hard. Grocery prices are up significantly. Home heating costs have surged, especially during harsh winters. Prescription medications, even with provincial drug plans, have become more expensive. Property taxes have risen in many municipalities. And for seniors on fixed incomes, those relying on CPP, old age security, and the guaranteed income supplement, every increase cuts deeper. Now, the federal government did implement some measures during the previous administration. There was a temporary doubling of the GST credit. There were one-time top-ups to the Canada Housing Benefit. And OAS was increased by 10% for seniors age 75 and older, a policy that remains in place. But here's what many analysts have pointed out. Those measures didn't reach everyone equally. If you were 74, you didn't qualify for the OAS boost. If you earned just slightly above the GIS threshold, you missed out on supplements. And many middle-income retirees, those who aren't wealthy, but also don't qualify as low-income, fell through the cracks entirely. So when Carney's team started conducting post-election consultations with seniors advocacy groups, provincial representatives, and pension policy experts, one theme kept coming up. Targeted support isn't working. Too many seniors are being left behind. And that's where this $950 payment enters the conversation. According to sources familiar with discussions inside Finance Canada, the Carney government is exploring what's being called a spring cost of living supplement for seniors. It's not a permanent program. It's not a reform to CPP or OAS. It's a one-time direct deposit designed to provide immediate relief to a specific group of Canadian seniors who are struggling the most. But here's the critical question. Who exactly qualifies? And why $950? Let's talk specifics. Based on what we're hearing from policy insiders and early framework documents, the proposed $950 payment would function as a one-time, non-taxable benefit delivered directly to eligible seniors through the Canada Revenue Agency, likely in April or May 2026. Here's how it would work. The payment would be automatically issued to seniors who meet certain criteria. No application required. If you're eligible, the CRA would deposit the funds directly into the same account where you currently receive your OAS or GIS payments. Now, eligibility appears to be tied to 3 main factors. First, age. You would need to be 65 or older as of March 31, 2026. This aligns with the standard OAS eligibility age and keeps the program administratively simple. Second, income. This is where it gets more specific. The payment is being designed for low to modest income seniors. Early indications suggest the income threshold could be set around $30,000 to $35,000 in net annual income for single seniors and possibly $50,000 to $55,000 for senior couples. Why those numbers? Because they roughly align with the existing GIS income thresholds. Seniors earning below these levels are already identified by Service Canada as financially vulnerable. The government wouldn't need to build a new verification system, they'd use existing data. Third, residency and benefit status. You would need to be a Canadian resident currently receiving old age security. If you're living abroad or if your OAS is suspended for any reason, you likely wouldn't qualify. So why $950 specifically? Here's the thinking. $950 is significant enough to make a real difference for essential expenses, roughly 1 month's rent for many seniors, or 2 to 3 months of grocery bills, or a full heating season's energy costs. But it's also small enough fiscally to be politically defensible. At an estimated cost of around $5 billion to $6 billion, depending on how many seniors fall within the eligibility range, this payment would be framed as a temporary, compassionate measure, not a structural reform, not a permanent entitlement, just a bridge payment to help seniors manage the cumulative cost increases they've faced. But here's what concerns some policy analysts. One-time payments don't solve ongoing problems. They provide short-term relief, yes, but they don't address the underlying issues: inadequate pension indexing, rising healthcare costs, or the affordability crisis that many retirees face month after month. So who would actually receive this payment? Let's break it down by group. Low-income seniors receiving GIS. If you're currently receiving the Guaranteed Income Supplement, you would almost certainly qualify. GIS recipients are already classified as Canada's most financially vulnerable seniors. You're earning below roughly $21,000 per year as a single senior, or $27,000 as a couple. The $950 would provide meaningful immediate relief, but it would also be absorbed quickly by day-to-day living costs. Modest income OAS recipients. This is a larger group. These are seniors who receive old age security but don't qualify for GIS because their income is just above the threshold. Maybe you have a small workplace pension. Maybe you're drawing a modest amount from RRSPs. You're not wealthy, but you're not classified as low income either. For you, this payment could be a surprise and a welcome one. You've likely felt ignored by previous targeted programs. Seniors aged 65 to 74. Remember, the 10% OAS increase only applied to seniors 75 and older. If you're in your late 60s or early 70s, you've been receiving standard OAS while facing the same cost pressures as older seniors. This $950 payment could represent an acknowledgement that age-based targeting left many people behind. Single seniors. Single retirees. Especially women are statistically more likely to live in poverty or near poverty. If you're widowed, divorced, or never married, your retirement income is often lower, and your expenses per person are higher. The income threshold for single seniors would likely be lower than for couples, but the $950 would be per individual, not per household. Now, who would not qualify? Higher income retirees. If your annual income exceeds $35,000 to $40,000 as a single senior, or $55,000 to $60,000 as a couple, you would likely be phased out. This includes seniors with significant workplace pensions, rental income, or investment income. Seniors living abroad. If you're a Canadian citizen receiving OAS while living outside Canada, you would not qualify for this domestic cost of living supplement. And seniors under 65. Even if you're 64 and retired, you wouldn't qualify because the payment is tied to OAS eligibility. The key takeaway here is this: The $950 payment is not universal. It's targeted, and targeting always means some people feel left out. Let's talk about what $950 actually means in real terms. For a senior living on $2,500 per month, roughly what you'd receive from OAS and a partial CPP, this is more than half a month's income. It could mean paying off an overdue utility bill, buying a 3-month supply of medications, covering emergency dental work, repairing a furnace or water heater, stocking up on non-perishable groceries, paying down credit card debt accumulated from cost of living increases. For a couple receiving $2,800 per month combined, a $950 payment to each spouse, $1,900 total, could cover property taxes, home insurance, or several months of transportation costs. But here's the reality check. $950 is a one-time payment. It doesn't change your monthly budget. It doesn't increase your CPP or OAS permanently. It's a temporary cushion, and once it's spent, you're back to the same fixed income you had before. Some economists have raised concerns about this approach. Dr. Jennifer Robson, a public policy professor who specializes in retirement security, has argued that one-time payments can create what she calls benefit volatility. Seniors receive a lump sum, adjust their spending temporarily, and then face a psychological and financial letdown when the payment doesn't continue. Others, like advocacy groups such as CARP, formerly the Canadian Association of Retired Persons, have said that while one-time payments are helpful, they're no substitute for permanent increases to GIS, better indexing of CPP, or structural reforms to seniors' benefits. Still, for a senior struggling right now today, $950 is not nothing. It's real money that can solve real immediate problems. The question is, should we be building policy around one-time fixes, or should we be addressing the deeper issues that make these emergency payments necessary in the first place? So why is the Carney government doing this now? Let's analyze this. Politically, seniors are a powerful voting bloc, and they were a key demographic in the recent election. Many older Canadians expressed frustration with rising costs and a sense that government programs weren't keeping pace with reality. A $950 payment, delivered quickly and without bureaucratic barriers, is a visible, tangible response. It shows action. It demonstrates that the government is listening. But there's also a risk here. If this payment is seen as a political placation, a quick cash handout to buy goodwill, it could backfire. Seniors aren't easily fooled. They want sustainable solutions, not temporary gestures. Fiscally, Canada's federal deficit has been a growing concern. Debt to GDP ratios, while manageable, are higher than they were a decade ago. The Bank of Canada, under new leadership, is focused on controlling inflation without triggering a recession. And Finance Canada is under pressure to demonstrate fiscal responsibility. A $950 one-time payment costs billions. Yes, but it's far cheaper than a permanent 5% increase to OAS, which would cost tens of billions annually. It's a way to provide relief without committing to ongoing structural spending. Demographically, Canada's population is aging rapidly. By 2030, nearly 1 in 4 Canadians will be over 65. The strain on OAS, GIS, and healthcare systems is only going to increase. Some analysts believe the Carney government is testing the waters using targeted temporary measures to manage fiscal pressure while avoiding politically costly cuts to existing programs. Policy direction. What we may be seeing here is a shift in how governments approach seniors' benefits. Rather than broad, universal increases, we may see more targeted, means-tested, time-limited interventions. This allows governments to claim they're helping seniors without locking in permanent spending increases. But here's the concern. If this becomes the norm, if seniors are expected to rely on periodic, unpredictable one-time payments rather than stable, indexed benefits, retirement planning becomes much more difficult. You can't budget around uncertainty. So what are experts and advocacy groups saying? Seniors organizations have offered cautious support. CARP issued a statement acknowledging that immediate relief is needed, but emphasized that one-time payments are not a substitute for indexing OAS and GIS to actual living costs. Economists are divided. Some, like those at the C.D. Howe Institute, have praised the targeted approach as fiscally prudent. Others, including researchers at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, argue that temporary measures create instability and don't address systemic income inadequacy among retirees. Provincial leaders have also weighed in. Quebec and British Columbia, both of which have aging populations and their own provincial senior benefit programs, have called for coordination to ensure seniors don't face clawbacks or unintended tax consequences from the federal payment. And what about individual seniors? Social media, community forums, and letters to MPs reveal a range of reactions. Some seniors are relieved and grateful. Others are frustrated, asking why the payment isn't larger, why it's not permanent, or why it excludes certain groups. One recurring theme: confusion. Many seniors aren't sure if they'll qualify when the payment will arrive, or whether they need to do anything to receive it. This highlights a persistent problem with government communication. Benefits and programs are often announced before the details are fully worked out, leaving people uncertain and anxious. So, what should you be doing right now if you're a Canadian senior or planning for retirement? First, ensure your information with the CRA is up to date. If this payment is approved, it will be delivered automatically, but only if the CRA has your correct banking information and current address. If you've moved recently, changed banks, or haven't filed a tax return in the past year, update your details immediately. You can do this through your My Service Canada account or by calling Service Canada directly. Second, file your 2025 tax return on time. Even if your income is below the taxable threshold, filing your return is essential. It's how the government confirms your income level and determines eligibility for benefits like GIS and this potential $950 payment. The deadline is April 30th, 2026. Don't miss it. Third, watch for official announcements. Right now, much of what we're discussing is based on policy discussions and insider reports. Nothing is confirmed until the federal government makes a formal announcement. Follow Finance Canada's website, subscribe to Service Canada updates, and watch for news conferences from Mark Carney or the Minister of Seniors. Fourth, be cautious of scams. Whenever new government payments are announced, scammers take advantage. You will never be asked to pay a fee to receive a government benefit. You will never be asked to provide your SIN or banking details over the phone or via email unless you initiate the contact through official channels. Be vigilant. Fifth, understand your full financial picture. Use this moment to review your retirement income sources. How much are you receiving from CPP, OAS, and GIS? Do you have workplace pensions or RRSP withdrawals? Are you eligible for provincial benefits or tax credits? A $950 payment is helpful, but comprehensive planning is essential. Sixth, advocate for long-term solutions. If you believe Canada's retirement income system needs reform, whether that's higher GIS, better CPP indexing, or universal pharmacare, make your voice heard. Contact your MP, join advocacy organizations, participate in consultations. One-time payments are helpful, but systemic change requires public pressure. So what happens next? If the $950 payment is approved, it would likely be delivered in late spring 2026, probably April or May. Seniors who qualify would see a direct deposit labeled something like Federal Cost of Living Supplement or SCLS payment. But beyond that, the bigger question is, what does this signal for the future of seniors' benefits in Canada? Here are a few scenarios. Scenario 1. This becomes a pattern. The government issues periodic, targeted one-time payments whenever fiscal space allows or political pressure builds. Seniors receive irregular boosts, but no permanent improvements to OAS or GIS. Budgeting becomes difficult. Uncertainty becomes the norm. Scenario 2. This is a stopgap before larger reforms. The Carney government uses this payment to buy time while developing a more comprehensive plan, perhaps expanding GIS, creating a new seniors income supplement, or reforming CPP indexing. The $950 is the first step, not the final answer. Scenario 3. This is the extent of it. The payment is delivered, the political goodwill is gained, and no further action is taken. Seniors continue to rely on existing programs, which slowly erode in real value due to inflation and demographic pressure. Which scenario is most likely? That depends on public pressure, fiscal conditions, and political will. But one thing is certain: Canada's retirement income system is under stress. The costs are rising, the population is aging, and the expectations of retirees are changing. Governments will have to respond, whether through temporary measures like this or through deeper, more permanent reforms. Here's what I want you to take away from this video. Mark Carney's government is reportedly preparing to issue a $950 one-time payment to eligible Canadian seniors, likely low to modest income retirees who are struggling with the rising cost of living. If this happens, it will be delivered automatically, likely in the spring, and it will be non-taxable. But this is not a permanent solution. It's not a reform. It's a short-term measure meant to provide immediate relief. For some seniors, this will be a lifeline. For others, it will be a reminder that our retirement income system is not keeping pace with the realities of aging in Canada today. So, stay informed, watch for official announcements, make sure your information is up to date with the CRA and Service Canada, file your taxes on time, and if you believe Canada can and should do better for its seniors, make your voice heard. Because one payment is helpful, but a secure, dignified retirement requires more than that. It requires a system that works consistently, fairly, and sustainably. If you found this analysis useful, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video with other Canadians who need to know what's happening. And leave a comment below. I want to hear from you. Are you a senior who would benefit from this payment? Do you think one-time measures are enough, or do we need bigger changes? Thanks for watching. My name is Joseph, and I'll see you in the next one.